so spot on that it scared them and me. And in a moment, I'll be like, I don't know where that came from. And they'd be like, how did you know? I never told you that. Did you talk to my mom? I've had this exact scenario play out so many times. I'm Sammy Tomorrow, and this is my podcast called Nose Job, about being a musician, a singer, a writer, who also experiences the phenomenon. The phenomenon, if you don't know what it is a really broad word to describe strange experiences that don't fit comfortably into a Western ideology. A lot of indigenous cultures that were able to maintain their beliefs and their ways have much better ways of integrating these experiences into their daily lives. My culture does not. So I am attempting to do that. So now, what is this episode about today? Well, first off, before I get too much further, I wanted to show off my sweatshirt that I made. It's just show us the aliens. Let me see if I can sit up more so you can see that. There we go. I will have it linked. It's just a design I made that it was just funny to me one day. Funny and also kind of how I felt. I do follow disclosure. I think that ufology is interesting. Learning about other life on potential, like other planets, universes, galaxies, all of that is very interesting to me. I love to deep dive into it. But then following the disclosure movement, I have a lot of opinions about it. But I was just feeling so frustrated one day, like, just show us the aliens. Like, just show us. Cut this out. This stupid back and forth, this long drawn out. Can they handle it? Can they not? Just feeling frustrated. And so I made it. If you feel the same way and you want one, it's linked below. In the last episode of Nose Job, and apologies that it's been a while, I am trying to get myself set up and get organized. And I still have more organizing to do, but I figured out a new setup, so we're going here. I was talking about telepathy, and I was going to talk about the concept of privacy. Something I do want to say when it comes to telepathy, if you don't know, this is one of the experiences that I've had, and I haven't spoken about it because, well, again, being in that Western materialistic ideology, there's no room for that. That's not real. And if you experienced it, no, you didn't. But I have experienced it, and it was weird. I've experienced it multiple times, and every time it's weird. Because, again, I have struggled to integrate that experience and process it, but with some help from other people and really great community members that are experiencers, I have been able to begin to do that, and sharing it and talking about it helps a lot. So in my experiences with telepathy, I think the biggest issue with it is realizing that that is in fact what's happening. For me, it's come through with people really close to me, but the actual literal experience of it for me has been my own internal dialogue. So this is something I've heard a lot about it on social media. The way we experience our internal world and our thoughts, some people just see things in pictures. Like they might have really vivid mental imagery. Some people have an inner voice in their head that sounds like this voice, which I'm kind of a blend of the two. I will have visual imagery. It can be really vivid. Sometimes it's softer. It kind of depends on the day. And then I have an inner dialogue, which sounds a lot like my talking voice, and I call it my thinking voice. And some people don't have either one. I think it's called aphantasia. I have something called synesthesia, which causes me to have involuntary mental stimulation from another sense. So a sound going off might cause me to have a flash of light in my mind's eye. In a sensory deprivation environment, it will actually project as a flash of light in front of my eyes. Or if I close my eyes and meditate, I will experience my synesthesia, I guess like on my eyelids or like on a black screen. It will start to show up as like glowing lights and textures and movement. And so from that, I've been able to use my synesthesia to, I guess, heighten some of my experiences with the phenomenon, and telepathy is one of them, where Initially, when I've had spontaneous telepathy, it's been a sudden shift in my inner dialogue, my thought voice, which starts telling me something that I wasn't thinking about it before, but it just kind of hits me all of a sudden. And it can be really easy to dismiss that and just think it's my own anxiety, which I did for years, not understanding where that was coming from. And then having a really hard time dealing with that anxiety because I didn't know where it was coming from. Western ideology would say, oh, that's just you. So I believed that. Oh, that's just me. There's something wrong with me. Oh, that's just me. There's something wrong with me. Oh, I'm just like, I'm too stressed. I'm too stressed. I got to stop. And a lot of it was true. A lot of it was me. And I had a lot of toxic habits and negativity and pessimism that I really needed to process and deal with, and grief and trauma that I needed to process and deal with. And dealing with all that really did help. But there was still stuff going on that I'm like, that's just not mine. And when I really did do the work to heal and process and integrate things, it made it a lot easier for me to say, that's not mine. This didn't come from me. And that gave me the ability to call out who I did think it was coming from. And it was almost always people close to me, really close to me, that I could bring it to and be like, were you thinking about this just now? When I started doing that, it freaked these people out because I had one particular experience. Well, I've had many experiences with my husband, but I had one where he just went white. I just went up to him and said, were you just thinking this, 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 and this? And he said, yeah, what the hell? Completely freaked him out. Freaked me out too. And I explain this, not that I want to get into that whole experience, but I explain this to say that it was really, really easy to dismiss that. And it took a lot of healing to be able to get to the point where I could identify that this is not mine. I didn't do this to myself. This is being projected to me from someone close to me. Being able to tell the difference is how I knew it was happening and why I could call it out. And why I want to explain why it's so easy to dismiss this from that materialistic Western world. You say that to someone, and it does sound like anxiety because a lot of the times when that type of event happens, it is. And I've had those moments too, and it's just been an anxious thing, and it wasn't necessarily sent to me from someone else, but this was clearly sent to me from him. It was. And it wasn't that I tapped in. So I want to talk about privacy. It wasn't that I tapped in. It wasn't that in that moment I was curious and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to go get into his head and steal all his thoughts and spy on him. I was minding my own business. And all of a sudden I got hit with this wave of emotion first, then corresponding thoughts second. And it's my belief, so do this what you will. This may not apply to you, but this is how I've come to understand my experience and how it meant to me. It felt like he unintentionally projected it to me. He was thinking about me in a particular way and about how he felt about me and me to him. And it felt like he unintentionally entangled us in that moment and sent it to me. He didn't mean to, but it happened. So the reason why I want to talk about privacy in this is that in the way that I've experienced telepathy, I couldn't say that I have the ability to just tap into someone's thought stream without their permission and start picking up on all this stuff. But I can't say that that's not happening either. Well, I don't know. Or that there aren't people that can do that. I don't know. But in terms of privacy, and certainly on this day when this happened, both my husband and I were really like, ooh, that feels intrusive. On both fronts, it felt intrusive that he could just send me something like that and that I could pick it up so easily. It felt like, oh, so we just don't have any privacy now? The more I've thought about it, the more I'm like, yeah, no, we don't actually. And I don't think we ever did. Again, this is how I am experiencing things, making sense of things, understanding things. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. That's okay. You don't have to believe it. I don't even know if I do. But how I've processed this, how it makes sense to me is that we've never had privacy. And we don't know where consciousness comes from necessarily. We have a lot of different ideas and people have a lot of different beliefs. And for some people, like their belief, that's absolutely true for them. I don't know exactly where mine is. I lean towards the idea that consciousness is a collective thing and it is shared. And kind of like water, streams and flows, consciousness does too. That makes a lot of sense to me. And in that, there is room for telepathy. There is room for a lot of the experiences of the phenomenon of mediumship, because if that's consciousness, it continues whether you're in a body or outside of a body. And it makes sense that someone who is not presently embodied still has access to your consciousness and could send you information that way. Hence mediumship or precognition or seeing a loved one in your dreams, which that's past. I've had that many times where the people that I've lost come to visit me and they tell me things. And a lot of times those dreams will be precognitive in some way, where they come and tell me, hey, this thing's going to happen. I'm giving you a heads up. And those things have absolutely come to pass. So again, Western ideology didn't leave room for that. And so I ignored those experiences for a really long time. But those were real, they happened, and they continue to happen. And at some point, I do want to have a talk about astrology, because I've been getting into it lately. And the real, true, deep astrology, really getting into it, it offers a lot of possible explanations for this that I like. So not today, but another time. But getting back to privacy, coming from the idea that consciousness might be shared and it flows, we never really had privacy. You can tune in or you can tune out, so you can give yourself the experience of privacy. You can give yourself the experience of exclusion, but you could always tap right back in or open yourself up. Now, can you close yourself off? I think you can sometimes, but this is where I will say I seem to have some ability to see past some of that when someone is trying to close themselves off. And it isn't something that I can say that I can help or not. I can ignore it, but it doesn't mean that that information isn't accessible to me anymore. It is. And this is why I want to get into astrology at some point, because it does say it in my chart, which I find so entertaining and fascinating. But I do seem to have this ability to see into people's subconscious realms or spaces. I don't know how to say it. I don't know, but it's happened to me many, many times. And maybe this is an aspect of telepathy. I don't know. But it's coming up right now because we're talking about privacy. But there have been so many times in my experiences of the phenomenon where I will be sitting with a person. Usually they're venting to me about something or trauma dumping or some version of that. They're telling me about something. And I can tell what their underlying problem is almost immediately. And yeah, some of it can relate to, I have an interest in psychology and I do read a lot, and just being, I don't know, like, I guess having an opening understanding, like high emotional intelligence, I guess, can aid in this, but there's something that goes deeper that I've accidentally poked people so many times this way because I haven't always realized that that's a weird thing to be able to see that. Like, that's not normal, and most people don't see that in others. So I would say something thinking, oh, this is obvious, and oh, they meant to communicate that to me, but they didn't. And to them, that was like their big dark secret. They may not even have fully realized it themselves or been aware of it yet, or at least hadn't wanted to admit it to themselves. And here I am like, oh, here you go, this thing. Let's see if I can give you an anecdote or a bigger example without calling anyone out in particular. That's the challenge, because I found myself in many, many scenarios. I guess, okay, say I'd be talking to a friend and they're telling me about their boyfriend, their partner, and they're complaining, they're going on and on about how, let me think. Okay, they're so frustrated with their partner, with their boyfriend, because he's just not paying enough attention to them. He's not like being aware of their emotions or being sensitive to their emotions. And he's just really like, if she's upset about something, he's just like, okay, whatever, and moves on and never tries to help her with anything. And it's so frustrating. And she just goes on and on complaining about this. When I'm hearing this, now there's probably plenty of valid things that she's saying about this man, but I might see or even ask, well, did you tell him that you're upset? She says, well, no, but he should just know. He should just know. He should be able to pick up on that. Something that they may not realize, that might be more of a subconscious thing, is that they have a tendency to hide their emotions and their vulnerability. And unless someone is keenly aware, hypervigilant, and or really, really high emotional intelligence, they're not going to see that in her. They're not going to know that. They won't recognize it. So if she says, yeah, I'm fine, they're going to take that at face value and be like, oh, she's fine, right? And in a relationship, you definitely would hope that, oh, the other person would be able to pick up on a deeper level, but a lot of guys just aren't doing that, so I don't know. But what I see is, okay, she has an expectation that maybe isn't realistic for the person that she's with. And okay, if that's something you want, ask for it, and or ask yourself, is this person capable of it? If not, maybe you gotta go and find someone that is. There's that aspect, but then the deeper level, because some of that, like, to me feels like, okay, yeah, that's obvious. If you understand a little bit about psychology, you could get there. The deeper thing that I'd say is, oh, you specifically have a childhood trauma where you saw your parents in a dynamic like this, but it led to something really explosive that felt violent, maybe actually was violent, but was terrifying for you, absolutely terrifying for you, where you saw when someone actually expressed their emotions, they weren't safe. And so you've learned to, and I might even be able to see there's a specific event where that child cowered, got scared, hid under the table. And that's the thing. I'll be like, oh, is there a time when you were like 4 or 6 or something and your parents were fighting and your dad got mad and he picked something up and he threw it because he didn't like something your mom said, or maybe it was the other way around. Your dad was trying to express himself and mom blew up at him and freaked out. And so you get scared and you learned that it's not always safe to express your emotions and be open and honest because someone might blow up and it could be really scary and chaotic. And you were way too young at the time to be able to process and understand that and feel like you could defend yourself. So you developed this coping mechanism instead. That's the kind of thing that I've accidentally done in the past and been spot on, so spot on that it scared them and me. And in the moment I'll be like, I don't know where that came from. And they'd be like, how did you know? Who told you? Who told you that? I never told you that. Did you talk to my mom? I've had this, I'm not exaggerating, exact scenario play out so many times before I knew what this was. Again, from my times as an atheist, from that reductionist materialistic world that didn't have an explanation for this. The only explanation was that I was a rude jackass. That's what I would be told. And these people usually, the only thing they could think was that I must have been talking about them with someone in their family, so it caused them to not trust me, because how else could I possibly have known that? And all I can say is, I assure you, I have not. I don't know that family member. I don't know. This just popped into my head, and I wondered if, this is why you have this problem in your relationship now. So, and that's not a specific story. That is like a culmination. I took bits and pieces from other real experiences and kind of mashed it together in this made up story. But that is a real example of, it depicts a real phenomenon for me that I've had. And what I've come to learn from speaking with other people that are psychics and mediums and have experiences like this is that, yeah, that is a psychic event, or that's one way to describe it, as a psychic event where I am seeing deeper into someone's psyche. I'm seeing deeper into someone's psychology, but into their subconscious, the subconscious aspects where they have their programming, where they have some patterns that they either from their real lived experiences, but sometimes it's even generational. And I've seen that and been like, hey, does your family struggle with this particular thing? Was there something with your great grandmother where this occurred? I will see that stuff. And it's very weird to me coming from again, reductionist materialistic society that doesn't make any room for that. That's so bizarre and weird, and it just makes me seem shady and like I've been stalking this person or something, and that's how I know. I did all their genealogy, went on Ancestry and found, it's without being able to have the broader, more open context of consciousness and bring in some of these other beliefs and possibilities, it's really hard to make room for these experiences and understand them. So this is, when it comes to telepathy and privacy, I want to be honest that, yeah, there are some of us that we can see into stuff. I can see things about you. Now, I'm not trying to. I want to make that clear that I'm not trying to. And I have learned from those past mistakes, now that I understand what's happening and I understand that this is something I kind of, in terms of a gift that I can do, now that I understand that, I have more control over it. So I can kind of block it, or at least learn not to say it if I see it. Kind of depends how open you are to me. Like if someone's really closed off to me, I probably could still see it, but I'd have to work at it. And what's the point? If I haven't been asked, I'm not going to do that. If that hasn't been asked of me, I don't want to do that. It's not a good feeling. I don't like it. It's very unpleasant. So this is why I say, in terms of being worried about people doing that, I don't think you really got to be worried about it, because it does take effort, especially if you're closed off. When this has happened, it's because people have really opened themselves up to me in a really big way. And part of it was because I was accidentally inviting that, and that's where like the trauma dumping would happen. So I would see everything, and I wasn't able to communicate to them or warn them like, hey, if you open up to me, I'm going to see it all, even stuff you don't want me to see. Now I can say that. So now I can, if someone starts to open up to me and be like, hey, wait a minute, is this really what you want to do? Because I might say something you don't want to hear, you're not ready to hear. I don't have to say it, but if you don't even want me to know, you might not want to start the conversation with me. You might not want to go there. And that allows me to put up a boundary that protects me, because it's not fair for me to be thrust into that scenario and then end up seeing something that they didn't want me to see. That's not fair for me, because they didn't give me an opportunity. They just started dumping on me because they don't know that this might happen, right? So it protects me and it protects them, because, yeah, they don't know. So I let them know, or just say, no. Another thing that I am starting to do is offer that as a very valuable service, of which I'm paid for. Because I'm starting to see, like, when I have used this in a more conscious way, especially with family members and friends who have come to me, they are aware that I can do that, and they're feeling stuck. It is really helpful to them. And I enjoy helping people in that way. Like, if I have the gift, why not use it? It seems such a waste to not, because not everyone has that. A lot of people do, but not everyone does. Certainly not everyone around me. I'm like maybe the only one that they know that can do it. So I want to be able to offer that, but I do need to protect myself, and I do deserve for it to be more mutually beneficial. So it is a paid service. If this is something you want help with, hit me up, go on my website. I can absolutely help you with it. I like to route it through artwork though, so it just makes it easier for me in my business, because I'm an artist, writer first. I'm a creative first, so I will route it through, and it's something that I can do a subconscious reading with you via artwork, and there'll be communication. We can hop on Zoom and we can talk about it too. I won't not talk about it. I won't just give you some really abstract piece of art and be like, here, figure it out. Unless you want that, I can, but it helps me to do things like that verbally and visually, and then I can run it through the art. So if you want that, it is on my website as custom artwork, and you can just put in what you need help with. But yeah, in terms of privacy, I guess what I'm saying when it comes to telepathy and consciousness in general, if you are worried about privacy, just know that you play a really big part in it. You have just as much a role to play in how private your world is as someone that has an ability like mine. How much you open yourself up can really affect what people see and they don't see. Now, something interesting that I heard said, and I want to say it was Kai Dickens from the Telepathy Tapes podcast. I think she said it. I've heard this before, though. If you're so worried about privacy, why? Why? What is it that you're afraid people are going to see, and why can't they see it? Like, what's going on there? And I think that, not saying that you don't have a right to privacy, you do. We all do have a right to privacy. But the bigger thing is, what are you trying to move around in secret? What are you trying to do that someone finding out would ruin? And is that right? And I think it highlights a certain type of person who maybe it's a coping mechanism, or maybe That's a darker trait that they have where they like to be manipulative or they want to be able to manipulate. And maybe it's just someone, again, it's just a coping mechanism that they feel safer that way. Okay. But ask yourself, is that the healthiest way to do things? To what extent does that secrecy block you from healing, stop you from doing better things? And I think that's a fair question to ask yourself. Why do you want that much privacy? What's going on? And again, it doesn't mean you don't have a right to it, but can you dig deeper into your own subconscious self and ask, like, ooh, what am I protecting here? What am I worried will come out? What am I worried someone's going to find out about me and why? Right? That's kind of fair. And it's okay if there's something like, I just don't want people knowing my business. I like to move quietly. You can still do that, and you can guard and protect yourself by holding your own awareness of it. When you have awareness of it, it makes it a lot easier for you to maneuver things. Again, from my viewpoint, you can have a completely different viewpoint, and that's fine. That's yours. This is how I see things. This is how I am understanding things presently. In my experience, the more awareness I have of my own stuff that's on that dark side and my subconscious, the better I'm able to guard it and myself in a healthy way that doesn't cause me to lash out so much or manipulate, either intentionally or unintentionally. I've never really been prone to intentional manipulation. If I've ever been manipulative, it's usually like a subconscious thing or I didn't mean to. But either way, lack of awareness is what put me in those positions, and gaining that awareness helps me understand why I'm doing something. Like, what's the true motivation behind what I'm doing? And that's just helpful in general. But again, when it comes to privacy, when I've gone through some of that healing process, there's not a whole lot that I can say would bother me if someone were to accidentally pick up on it, especially the people around me. They already know everything. So the idea personally of privacy, I'm like, okay. That is beyond like advertisers. I don't want advertisers knowing my everyday, but it seems like they probably do anyway. But that's a topic for another time. Okay, I think that wraps up what I wanted to talk about today. I could talk about this forever and ever, but this is getting long. So I'll end it here. If you have questions about this, if you found this helpful, or if there's something you want me to go in deeper on, just let me know. And if you are interested in my subconscious services, but you have questions, just hit me up, send me a message. You can send me something, you can email me at sammy@soundslikesamy.com. You can send me a message on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, any social media, and I'll get back to you. So I hope to hear from all of you. I hope this was helpful today, and looking forward to talking to you next time.